When Sonny Franzese went to prison in 1970, it is alleged that his gambling operation was taken over by mobster Michael Midge Belvedere. Belvedere was a heavily connected gangster, and also the alleged mastermind behind a plot to steal $80 million worth of cash and jewellery from JFK Airport. Let's check him out. Welcome to OC Shorts, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today we're going to take a quick look at Michael Midge Belvedere, a mobster connected with the Colombo crime family. Michael Belvedere was born in 1929 in New York City. Throughout his life he lived in various parts of Queens. He lived in Glendale, Howard Beach and Ridgewood. He also lived on Long Island, in both West Babylon and Lake Grove. Michael Belvedere was known as Midge to all that knew him, although he was also called at times the Silk-Gloved Kid. Midge Belvedere is generally considered to have been a long-time associate of the Colombo crime family, but never officially inducted. Although some reports state that he was a made man, this is contested by historians. In 1956, at the age of 27, Belvedere was arrested for being part of a gang that carried out a string of payroll hold-ups. In 1965, it was reported that Midge Belvedere was associated with Colombo crime family captain John Sonny Franzese. Midge Belvedere was picked up by police on bookmaking charges, as one newspaper reports. West Babylon. A 35-year-old father of 4 children was arrested here yesterday on a charge of possession of policy slips. Police said his $2,500 a day business was connected with Cosa Nostra elements in New York. Arrested was Michael Midge Belvedere, whose address was given as 722 5th Street, West Babylon. He pleaded guilty in 1st District Court to possession of policy slips, a misdemeanor, and was fined $100. First Squad detectives said Belvedere had been under surveillance for several weeks and was picked up as he left his house. He had 25 slips and a tally sheet in his car, the detectives said. They said Belvedere is known to have associated with Profaci Mob Lieutenant John Sonny Franzese of Herrick's. Just 2 months after this charge, Belvedere was arrested with a group of wise guys for his part in the hijacking of $100,000 worth of electrical appliances. It was reported 6 men believed by police to be part of an interstate hijack mob were charged yesterday with the theft of a truckload of $100,000 worth of electric appliances. They were Dominic Ricardo, 27, a butcher of 159 Bay 47th Street, Brooklyn; Sol Furnez, 36, a salesman of 861 Downing Road, Valley Stream, Long Island; Frank Radice, 40, a butcher of 418 Bleecker Street, Brooklyn; John LeMaita, 30, a truck driver of 26 St. Nicholas Avenue, Brooklyn; Michael Belvedere, 35, a labourer of 161 to 18 97th Street, Howard Beach, Queens; and Thomas Agro, 33, meat store manager of 285 Hemwood Street, Brooklyn. This is the way the cops described the caper. LeMaita, who had been under police surveillance for almost a year, drove into the Trans-American Trucking Company lot of 5806 Page Place, Mathers, Queens, Friday night in a tractor of the type used to haul cross-country trailers. He was followed in a car by Ricardo and Furness. The trio hooked LeMaita's tractor to a Trans-American trailer loaded with appliances and drove it to 58th Place and Maspeth Avenue, 5 blocks away. They then went by car to Radici's meat locker at 413 Knickerbocker Avenue, Brooklyn, where they met Radici, Agro and Belvedere. When a supposed fence failed to show, the group split. The standout name that was arrested with Midge Belvedere was Thomas Agro. Tommy Agro would go on to become a made man in the Gambino crime family, and would be a soldier under then-captain Joseph Piney Armone. Agro would later take on an associate called Joseph Joe Dogs Iannuzzi. But before this, Joe Iannuzzi had been close with Michael Midge Belvedere. Joe Dogs Iannuzzi and his wife Bunny had a baby boy on November the 26th, 1967. And Midge Belvedere and his wife Anne would be godparents to Iannuzzi's new son. Years later, Joe Dogs would turn informer, and in his autobiography, he described Belvedere and his wife. Midge was a good-looking guy, a bronze Sicilian with thick, wavy black hair and dark, dark eyes, almost black. When he stared at you, you felt like knives were going through your head. Midge dressed well and played the gangster role to the hilt. His wife Anne was beautiful. She looked like Elizabeth Taylor, but with a better body. But once she opened her mouth, Maron, if you weren't looking at her, you'd think a truck driver had joined the conversation. As you can see from Joe Dogs' description of Midge's wife Anne, she was no shrinking violet. Joe Dogs would describe an incident where actress Joy Lansing appeared to give some attention to Midge Belvedere, which displeased his wife. Joe Dogs writes, "Once, when we were all vacationing in Florida, coming out of a hotel after seeing Sergio Franchi perform, the television actress Joy Lansing pushed through the mob waiting for the valet to bring around their cars. Joy Lansing smiled at Midge and gave him the eye. Anne sidled up to her slowly and said, 'If you don't take your fucking eyes off my husband, I'll smack you in the face with your own big tit, you fucking whore.'" Joe Dogs Iannuzzi would describe Midge Belvedere as his rabbi, his early mentor. And it was Midge's relationship with Iannuzzi that inadvertently saved Belvedere's life. On the 10th of November 1967, Midge Belvedere was with Joe Dogs when they bumped into big-time mob bookmaker Frankie 500 Telleri, a Bonanno family mobster. Frankie 500 invited them both to join him and Bonanno family captain Thomas D'Angelo and D'Angelo's brother James for dinner. According to Joe Dogs, Midge Belvedere was tempted by the dinner offer, but Iannuzzi needed to go home and Midge had promised to drive him. Midge Belvedere nearly paid for Joe Dogs to take a taxi so he could join Frankie 500 for dinner, but at the last minute changed his mind and drove Iannuzzi home, passing on the dinner invitation. Later that night, at the Cypress Gardens restaurant in Ridgewood, Queens, Bonanno captain Thomas D'Angelo, Frankie 500 Telleri, and D'Angelo's brother James were machine-gunned to death as diners watched. The shooter is believed to have been Gaspar Magaddino, and the triple homicide was allegedly ordered by Joe Bonanno and his son Bill, as part of the Bonanno family civil war that occurred in the mid-1960s. After this, Midge Belvedere would refer to Joe Dogs as his lucky charm, as he believed that he too would be dead if he had attended the dinner and not driven Iannuzzi home. I cover the Cypress Gardens massacre in greater detail in one of my previous videos. In 1970, Sonny Franzese started his famous 50-year sentence, although he would actually be released in 1978 after serving only 8 years. But he did return multiple times on parole violations. Anyway, after Franzese went to prison in 1970, it is alleged that his associate Michael Midge Belvedere took on his bookmaking operation. As one newspaper reports, at one time in 1970, federal investigators believed that Belvedere had taken over the gambling operation of former Colombo crime family captain Sonny Franzese. In July 1976, Belvedere was arrested on suspicion of pulling off a $150,000 jewellery heist from an apartment on Long Island. He was released on $100,000 bail, but this didn't slow Midge Belvedere down. Just 3 months later, in October, Midge Belvedere planned to steal $80 million of cash, bonds and jewellery from the Swissair terminal at Kennedy Airport. Unfortunately for Mike Belvedere, someone had tipped off the authorities regarding the planned heist. And on Wednesday the 27th of October 1976, Midge Belvedere was arrested on site at JFK Airport with 2 accomplices as they were about to pull off the biggest heist in the history of New York. As one paper reports, Police say they arrested 3 men early today as they were about to pull what authorities said might have been the most profitable crime in American history: the theft of $80 million. Police said the men, unarmed but carrying some of the most sophisticated electronic and alarm bypass equipment officers said that they had ever seen, were about to crack a safe containing money, gold, diamonds and other precious stones, destined for deposit in secret accounts in Swiss banks. The plan, according to police, was to overpower the lone security guard at the Swissair hangar at Kennedy Airport and then open the big safe. But the police, acting on tips they got last August, foiled the burglary. Another goes on to state, police officials said they believed that this was the largest single burglary attempt in the city's history. Arrested and charged with conspiracy, burglary and attempted larceny were Michael Belvedere, 47, of 7834 85th Street, Glendale, Queens; Cosmo Mezzapella, 51, of 75 Grant Avenue, Brooklyn; and Ralph Leichweiss, 47, of 220 East 57th Street. Police said they believe Belvedere to be the mastermind of the operation. If Midge Belvedere had been successful in his Swissair burglary, the $80 million would have dwarfed the $5 million stolen in the Lufthansa heist by Jimmy Burke's men just over 2 years later. Amazingly, Michael Belvedere would receive just 5 years probation after he pled guilty to attempted grand larceny. In 1978, law enforcement intelligence sources compiled a list of the top 25 mobsters who lived or operated in Queens. On the list published were the likes of Joseph N Gallo, consigliere of the Gambino crime family; powerful Gambino soldier Anthony Fat Andy Ruggiano; Lucchese family captain Neil Migliore; future Genovese captain Buster Ardito; and under a list of Colombo mobsters was the name of Michael Midge Belvedere. His entry in the top 25 Queens-based mobsters said, Michael Midge Belvedere, 49, of 7834 85th Street, Glendale. Family associate, believed to be key figure in rackets at Kennedy Airport. Belvedere awaits trial in theft of $150,000 worth of jewellery from a Nassau County importer and was arrested 2 years ago in what police described as an attempt to steal gold bars from the Swissair cargo terminal at Kennedy. Belvedere pleaded guilty in June to attempted grand larceny and was sentenced to 5 years probation. Midge Belvedere then appears to drop off the radar for over a decade. And then, in 1990, his name comes up again in somewhat bizarre circumstances after he was shot to death on the driveway of his home in Lake Grove, Long Island. Midge Belvedere had been on the run from a federal warrant and hiding out using the name Michael Rizzo. However, whilst dodging the authorities, he met a woman and married her, and she, according to investigators, had no idea who he really was. It was reported, when Betty Mastando wed Michael Rizzo 2 weeks ago, she thought she had married a 57-year-old retired restaurateur who just didn't like mingling in the neighbourhood, police and neighbours said. But yesterday, 1 day after her new husband was killed in the driveway of their Lake Grove home, she learned that she had really married Michael the Midge Belvedere, a 61-year-old member of the Colombo crime family who was in hiding from a federal arrest warrant for his alleged role in a construction extortion scheme, police said yesterday. Suffolk homicide detectives investigating the murder said yesterday that a fingerprint check of the victim confirmed that the man killed with a bullet in the chest about 10:30 a.m. Wednesday was actually Belvedere, who had a long record of convictions for assault, robbery, forgery, drug dealing and attempted larceny. Belvedere was an organised crime dinosaur, said Suffolk District Attorney James M. Catterson Jr. Generally, mob guys of his stature don't live to his age. As mentioned, detectives questioned his new wife, but were convinced that she was completely oblivious to who she had recently married. Detective Sergeant Kevin Cronin would say, "We've spoken to her, and we feel she was not aware of his true identity. nor was she aware of his past activities. He had told her that he had retired from the restaurant business. The motive for the shooting of long-time Colombo crime family associate Michael Midge Belvedere is unknown, and his murder remains unsolved. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.